I'm Angeline Ball. I'm an actor, singer, songwriter from Dublin.
Hi, Angeline. Absolute pleasure to
Yeah.
have you on the Access Chats. Also, I mean, we'll kind of come to it, but obviously we're talking on the 7th of August and kind of a sad week in the last week for anyone who was part of the commitments with the passing of Alan Parker. That must have brought back floods of memories, was it, from that time?
It really did, and the thing about it is that there'd been requests for some sort of, quotes or interviews and stuff, and it did bring me back, and it did kind of, propel back into that moment of the casting and us forming as the group and the gang. And like, I had to take my hat off to him because back then, youth is wasted on the youth. This man was a maverick, and the films that had preceded the commitments were just incredible. But like he managed to kind of corral 12 of us, and we were a bit mad, and a bit all over enthusiastic and not really knowing how to put our left foot in front of our right or right in front of left. And he managed to get this incredible performance out of all of us that was, completely natural. I think he managed to kind of keep everything about the film. We all had the script or whatever, but he managed to keep everything about the film under the, the radar so that we wouldn't become in any way affected by the performances. But, he had to be hard on us sometimes, and he was very soft. He was like this kind of, somebody said he was as soft as nails. I remember somebody saying that. Yeah. And no, but he was just amazing. I mean, to me, I loved him. He was like a big teddy bear. He just was a very humble man, very quietly spoken, no big airs and graces about him, and just really knew when he got something and he'd nailed it, and didn't kind of do scenes to death, which was a great thing for us because we would have obviously, I mean, the dialogue had to be quite quick and as if it's just coming off the cuff. So yeah, and we recorded a lot of the music before the film for the album. So by the time we came to filming, we already knew the songs inside out, the two girls and myself and Andrew. And what we did then, I thought was, I mean, back then, this is how many years ago, we recorded live, on set. All the songs that you hear in the film, they're live.
Wow.
I mean, we had a band that came in for the session musicians for the album. So we sang live to click track or backing track.
Wow. Come here. I mean, I'll come back to the commitments in a while, but I just wanted to kind of, mention that from the off about Alan's passing. But also, before we go back, there's also an awful lot of talk about that era in Ireland, the whole wider, Jack Charlton, the Irish football team, the changing of culture. And the commitments is right in the middle of all this. It's a real, looking back to that era, there's a real sense of time and place about Dublin and Ireland that was evident in that film as well.
Yeah, and the thing is that, like, I remember they took us to it while we were filming it, and they took us to a screening of The Field. And I remember seeing this film in the Savoy on, O'Connell Street and thinking, God, this is amazing. And that probably would have been the first film for a long time to come to Ireland and kind of put it on the map, and thinking it was really special. And the fact that we were kind of sitting in the cinema looking, at this film and then doing our own film. And I think definitely Ireland seemed to kind of blossom around that time, and it seemed to kind of get its own identity and want to stand on its own 2 feet. And the doors suddenly were open to filmmaking, the Irish team. My God, that was so cool. Everybody had the flags outside the house, give it a lash, Jack, and they had those little, that was so funny. Do you remember the heads that you used to get and you stick on the window in your car and they kind of bobble along with all the team? I don't know whether you got them with petrol or something.
That's right, actually.
Yeah, I remember Paul McGrath's head and, all the others. So, yeah.
Come here, I mean, take me back then, kind of, was performance, like from an early age, you in Dublin growing up, was that kind of, looking back now, were you kind of going, oh Jesus, yeah, I was always destined to be doing this?
I think I was, yeah, I probably back then, nowadays everybody has a name for everything and a pill for everything. I think back then I must have had a bit of ADHD or something. I was, no disrespect, but
Yeah.
I was constantly on the go and constantly doing things and flaying my arms and legs, you know. So I think I bullied my mother to take me to dancing and just to kind of hone that energy somewhere. And I was always singing. Like my mum had a little tape recorder with a mic, and you know, we were just, I think Lena Zavaroni was around that time, you know, and she had a kind of a very grown up, soulful voice for a small child, you know, although I don't know whether they kept her in dresses until she was about 16, you know, God love her. But I think, you know, there was that, and I really wanted to do it. So yeah, I did join dancing. And do you know what was amazing? I went to Billy Barry's, and what was amazing back then is this is before the internet or mobile phones or any of that. And there was a great sense of, you know, like a kind of a group. You were together with people. And like I had so many, I was delighted. I got so many sleepovers over that, you know, Billy Barry's over in Artane and, you know, all these places. And I was definitely one of those kids that wanted to go, like, yeah, I'll go for a sleepover. But there was a great sense of camaraderie. And also, you know, I think if you ever, I mean, not that I set out to say I'm going to be a star, I want to be in this business, but you know, there was great tools that you were given that kind of set you up for life in general. You know, things like, you know, if you go for something and you don't get it, a bit like job interviews or whatever, you know, you kind of brush yourself down and get over it. And also that you're made to kind of share and not feel too jealous about somebody else getting something. You know, and we were kept in check, and it's about having respect and about respect for each other. So I think definitely, I mean, I loved it. I loved my time there. And then, you know, I just wanted to continue. All I know is that when I'm performing, if I'm singing or if I'm acting, whatever I'm doing, if I'm getting some enjoyment out of it, you know, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
And the day that I don't is the day that I stop.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I just loved it. And, you know, I mean, back then there was lots of jobs available to us, you know, when you're in that. And it's so funny. I was just thinking about this conversation that we were going to have, and about years ago about equity. Like an equity used to be in, I don't know, it's probably still in Liberty Hall in Dublin. But, you know, back then there was different sections, and there was the actor section, and then they had a variety section. And, you know, you're always slightly embarrassed to say you're in the variety side of, you know, equity, because there was this kind of snobbishness about it, you know. And, you know, it's funny when you get films like La La Land and all of these now coming out where they, you know, all singing, all dancing, you're kind of proud to say, well, yeah, I can do that. But like back then it was a bit kind of snooty to be, you know. But, you know, there was a lot of work in RTE for dancers. And then, you know, because I could sing, I said, you know, I want to break out of this mold as just being a dancer. I want to be a singer. And I did have to, you know, go through a period of turning down dance work to just only accept singing work,
Yeah.
you know. And I think everything has its progression, you know, and I did that, and I had a few shows. And that's when I'd met people like the Hubbards that were casting a lot of ads in Ireland, because, you know, things start to pick up, I think, economy-wise, and, you know, they were trying for it to pick up. So there's ads, and my first ad on the TV was for Premier Dairy Milk, you know. And I was a young girl leaving home, you know, getting in, having my own flat basically. And I remember I couldn't get over the fact that they'd cut a hole in the back of a fridge for the camera to go into, and that I could open the fridge and take the milk out, but don't look at the camera, you know. So and that's how I kind of knew the Hubbards. And
were you still at school then when you were doing this? Like, was kind of like, did you like school? Was school a thing, or was it like just something that you had to do? Or
I think school was something I had to do, really. And I wasn't a bad student, you know, I wasn't a bad pupil, but I just, again, that thing of not sitting still, I just, you know, a lot of it, the only kind of subject I liked in school was English and music. And that was it. And I was delighted when I got to secondary school to do music.
Yeah.
But the rest, I mean, I did it for the sake of it. But, you know, I didn't really enjoy school. I mean, I always loved. And, you know, having two older sisters as well, who were buying their records and buying their singles at the time. And I had one sister that was into ska and reggae, two-tone, and the other one that was into heavy metal. So I had the kind of broad spectrum. And then somewhere I kind of landed myself in the middle and bought the first LP, the first, album I bought was two, actually. It was The Pretenders and the other was Blondie Parallel Lines. So I kind of wanted to create my own identity within the two sisters, But yeah, no, I don't think I was really one of those.
I say that's not a bad first couple of albums to indoctrinate yourself with.
I know, I mean, pretty cool. And I remember, I think with Parallel Lines, you got this free poster of Debbie Harry, and she was in this white plastic, like against her. And I just used to look up at her and like adore her, her and the Virgin Mary for some reason. I mean, Virgin progressed from Mary to Debbie Harry,
Well, that's some journey.
Yeah.
Then, like, what sort of, like, when you were, say, kind of in school and younger and kind of, what sort of stuff in RT were you kind of involved in the early days, like sort of with Billy Barry and dancing?
Well, there used to be a show, I mean, years ago, there was a live show with Brendan Grace, who passed away last year. This year, actually, was it?
No, last year.
Last year. And he did this thing that was called Sunday Night at the Gaiety. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And then he progressed from there to do Sunday Night at the Olympia. So I was kind of hired to dance because there was, like, say, presenters like Johnny Logan, celebrities like Johnny Logan, coming on, and he'd be singing "When the Going Gets Tough" or something, and you'd be doing the backing vocals, or not backing vocals, you'd be doing the backing dancing. And all I wanted to do was kind of be out there in the front. So when something did arise, they were doing, because the dancers would get their little 5 minutes of fame in the middle of the show and do a number. And they'd done a chorus line. And I remember they were looking for somebody to sing What I Did for Love, and I did that. And came out the front and sang that. And then I was kind of inundated. And it was the first time I'd really seen myself on television as well, which can be terrifying. And these two producers that were producing quite close to the factory, actually, brought me in and kind of did a couple of songs with me and stuff. And that's when I kind of left the dancing behind and wanted to pursue, music and singing.
And did you kind of, it sounds like you had that moment of feeling, of singing that song, you on the stage. Was that kind of was there an awakening there, kind of going, oh, this feels kind of like home or special? Or
yeah, I mean, I've sang since I could sing. I've tapes when I'm 3, and I think, I do love it. I mean, I was very, very nervous, and it was live television, but once I settled in, I loved it. And that's the thing. If I don't sing for a long time, I get kind of itchy feet. I don't really, I love it. It's kind of part of me.
Yeah. And come here then, as you moved on then, and kind of, when did the acting or performing in a broader sense kind of come in? Like,
well, I think it was really, if I'm honest, it was the commitments, and I keep bringing it up, even though I said I probably won't talk about it that much. But it was a pivotal time, for me and my life. And I realized that, I do love singing, but I also love this.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoy the process, and, creating something and getting it from A to final stage was just mind-blowing for me.
Yeah.
So that's when I really kind of fell in love with it.
And had you done stuff before that? Had you?
Not really. I'd done maybe a little bit of, as I said, ads and stuff.
Yeah.
But nothing like
because
that.
I mean, the performances across the board in that film, from people who are at very different, stages, an awful lot of people who are first films, an awful lot of people, but they're incredible. And I think you spoke earlier on about the direction of it, but I think also, a gift for a singer and a musician to kind of have both those things going on in the same time in your first film.
Yeah, I mean, it was, as I said, I think, all down to Alan Parker and his wonderful direction, and also his casting, and the Hubbards who, brought these people in to see him. But I think, Yeah, and what it was as well was that I think sometimes when you know, when you have that knowledge that something's going to be good or bad, there's a certain amount of anticipation that hangs on it. And I think sometimes that can show in filmmaking
Yeah,
is that, you know, this is going to be huge and I'm going to be huge in it and I'm going to be a big star kind of
yeah,
thing is, I think it mars the performance anyway, you know? So I think, yeah, I mean, it was a very, very special time, very special film, and a very special group of people that we did it with, you know, each other. And I don't think we could, and I don't think any of us has ever equaled that in our careers after nearly 30 years, you
yeah.
know?
Well, there are performances though that I'm going to talk about that I think, you know, for you particularly, I think there is amazing stuff you've done. Maybe in a collective sense at the moment in time, but absolutely. I mean, I think I mean, I used to be an actor back then. I think everyone in Dublin kind of went for the audition for it. Like it was like an event in itself, the audition process for the commitment.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
and after that, I mean, I suppose, you know, obviously haven't seen yourself on telly before and that, but obviously that's a whole step up into a new thing, and particularly then the way the commitments caught fire. So you as a person and you as a young person coming out into a new career, that must have been extraordinarily exciting and scary to kind of, you know.
I think it was more scary than extraordinary. I mean, it was extraordinary, and that's what made it scary.
Yeah,
And I don't think, and I, you know, I'm blue in the face saying this, but I think that, you know, people that are on TV now, they totally want to go for overnight success and want that adulation and that recognition and everything. And I think when you're not prepared for it, it's, and you don't know how to deal with it. And, you know, even now they're even talking about these people that are in, you know, Big Brother or Love Island and all that, and how they deal with things mentally after the come down and after the explosion of them being, you know, in people's living rooms. I think, you know, nowadays people are more aware of, you know, catch them when they fall, but not in the sense that I fell or anything, but I just found it very disturbing to me that people knew me and people, you know, had this familiarity with me that and I didn't even know them. And also I found it difficult with the type of role that I had in that film. And, you know, it was quite, I got the sexism in a way, and I got the, you know, oh, she's kind of slightly I felt, and this is something that I put on myself, but that I had to kind of prove that I was more and that I was an actress, that I was more than Imelda, you know?
yeah, yeah.
So I
That's
think,
very interesting because I think, you know, you're right. There's a real, and I think,
hold.
yeah, and also the entertainment industry, particularly around, say, music, particularly in the last kind of decade or 2 decades, around X Factor and that sort of, you know, that going towards that big bang of an initial thing. But also, you know, you say it became such a cultural phenomenon. I mean, you went on tour then, didn't you? You played.
Well, we didn't go on tour as such. What we did was there was like 3 big premieres in America.
Yeah.
Obviously, because there was some American money in it. Prior to the Dublin one. And so we went to America. We were brought over. We couldn't believe it. And there was people filming us because we were very green, you know, over there. I mean, really. And like literally they'd have to count us at night in the bus going home, the little minibus, because to make sure we were all on it. You know, it was like La La Land. And yeah, there was 3 premieres. The first was LA, and then New York, and then Chicago. And then afterwards, Wilson Pickett did sing with us.
Wow.
At the after parties.
Wow.
And our after parties were kind of private things. So you'd have like James Woods there, Kevin Costner, you know, I'm not name dropping.
No,
but,
yeah.
All of these people that like, and the guys were great. Like, I mean, at least everybody kept each other's feet on the ground, really.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the lads were like, you know, you never guess who I was talking to, you know, over there. That was a Winona Ryder, you know. And at least we had each other, which was lovely. And I think that was the thing, as well as that when after it all kind of died down, you're left with just yourself.
Yeah.
There is safety in numbers, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously it's a great platform, but also you say it's kind of, you know, the not typecasting necessarily, but the pigeonholing into. For you, I'm pretty someone who had a career before that as an entertainer and a kind of singer, that I'd say, you know, looking at your career since, that has been amazing. I mean, some incredible work and a huge amount of work in film and TV and on stage. But was there a hunger in you after that then? Was there kind of going, okay, what is it that you want to do next? Or was there kind of a treadmill?
Definitely, definitely. I think that there was a hunger for me to act, but also there was a hunger for me to act away, as far away from that role as possible. So I think one of the first films that I did after that was a film called maybe Brothers in Trouble or something, which was this kind of film set in the 60s, immigrants. It was a beautiful film directed by Udayan Prasad. I guess in a way I wanted to go, I had this and I wanted to go in the opposite direction to meet myself back again. So I needed to kind of learn the craft, you know, and I needed to find out what my strengths were and what my weaknesses were, and how, you know, if I was going to do this, you know, am I this and this kind of, I play only these roles, or can I run the gauntlet basically?
Yeah. And it's funny, I mean, because like over the next, you know, and I'm not going to go through it in a narrative way. We might kind of end up kind of going back and forward, but like, you know, over the next kind of number of years, there was like, say, John Boorman kind of across a number of different projects. And how did that come about?
It came about because I had an audition for a little short with John Boorman, and it was this, they were going to do a bit like Shortcuts, you know, that film where it was all kind of garnered together. And there was about 4 or 5 directors asked to do a short and pick a painting from the Louvre in Paris. And sometimes there was a story behind the paintings, or sometimes they were anonymous. And John picked this painting of 2 nudes bathing, of these, Gabrielle and her sister, and one's holding a ring, the other's holding the other one's nipple. I don't know whether this goes out after the watershed. But of course, you know, and he wrote this story around how this painting became this painting. And I thankfully, in a way, although I was quite jealous at the time, that I didn't go up for Gabriella or her sister. I was going up for Simone, the lowly handmaiden. And yeah, but she gets the guy in the end, which is a good thing, you know. And I'd auditioned for it, and I got the role, and we went to France, and it was all very in-house. We went to France to stay in this chateau of John's friend. We filmed in it. His wife was the producer. John Hurt was his mate. He was in it. His son Charlie played the painter. It was all lovely, you know, and it was from working with John in that then he asked me to do the general, but said that he wanted me to look, you know, dark, different, and I was more than happy to oblige.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then I've worked with John quite a few times. Then I did Tiger's Tail. And I remember reading Tiger's Tail and saying, yeah, that's all grand, but it's kind of a small part, John. But what about the one who's playing the wife? And he went, oh, that's Kim Cattrall. And I went, all right, sorry. I can't even kind of pitch for myself there, you know? So, and then I've done quite a bit of radio for him. He's done he's done these kind of little dramas. And I always joke with Brendan Gleeson in it, that, like, you know, during my time working with him, I'm either a floozy or something in film, but it's only on radio that I get to be kind of proper and his wife in something. Because I was his wife in a couple of things in these plays. So yeah, and that was and I love working with John. I mean, I just found him incredible. And, you know, you look back at his body of work, and like Alan Parker, he's got a great eye and he knows what he wants, you know.
But I also think, looking back, and I actually saw recently enough, the general, I mean, the central performances and that, and I think I really would mark that as I loved you in that. I think there was something special about that whole movie in the intimacy, and beyond the kind of the whole, obviously, you know, setting that we all know of.
Yeah.
That, but I think it captured that really, really well. And yeah, your performance was, I mean, again, it must have been a great joy to kind of have something like that to explore.
it was kind of frightening, if I'm honest with you, because at that time, you're playing somebody who's actually still alive, well, obviously still alive. You're playing who actually, you're not kind of slightly diversifying a bit by giving the character another name. I mean, we were actually called the names of the actual ladies, you know? And so when you kind of, you know, and obviously me coming from Northside and, you know, Dublin, I would never try and patronize in any shape or form, you know, people that are, you know, from my neck of the woods, you know. And so, and also, you know, because there can be a kind of fashion to kind of be slightly comedic with the role, or those kind of roles, or turn the notch up a bit, or be quite aggressive with, you know, that. And I didn't. And also I was very respectful that I was playing somebody that, and these are people's lives, you know, no matter what you think, you know, you have to kind of be honest. And I always feel that I have to find a certain empathy with my characters, even if I don't like them. I have to find an empathy to play them, you know. And yeah, and there was all sorts of stuff going on at the time, because I think there was some things about using the names, not using the names, all of that. So it was made very respectful. Like, we did walk on eggs making it. We didn't want to rock any boats, obviously, but at the same time, we had to be very true to.
No, and it captured it, and I think it's a beautiful performance. And I mean, like, through all that, like, was music, I mean, obviously you're doing a lot of television, we get to that in a second as well, but like, the performance bit, I mean, weren't you involved in Evita as well in tell us about that.
God, Alan had said, well, I want you to just sing, and, you know, just to see, because obviously the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber is very different to soul. And there's all these kind of, when you're dealing with that kind of stage music, there's all sorts of harmonies and this, that, and the other that, you know, you need to kind of, and it's tricky, that one, you know. And I think he just wanted you know, to find the voices that he needed for the album. And I got like a part doing backing vocals, and I was so excited, because at that time Madonna was my, you know, be all and end all. And I was so excited, and I had to go to London to record the vocals. And I went into the studio going like, oh, where is she here? And is she coming? And sadly, she'd done all of her lead vocal the week before. Of course, she didn't want people like me hanging around, you know. But no, that was exciting. That was great. Again, I mean, what the thing about me is I like constantly evolving. I don't like I like changing, because I get really bored. I bore myself, you know, and I like doing different things and just saying, oh, you know, I like frightening myself as well, saying, yeah, I can do that. And then kind of going, oh God. But, you know, that kind of thing. So like, yeah.
People that has, you know, at the end of your CV in the early days, kind of, you know, I can ride horses and I can drive trucks.
Yeah. Well, I never put the horse thing on, because I did that on actually that film with John Borman. And I just thought, oh, good God. There was the closing scene of this film, it's called Two Nudes Bathing, is that, you know, Charlie's on the horse, the painter. He's about to leave the chateau, and he gallops towards Simone, who's standing there. I remember the description in the script with her meager possessions. And this horse was giving it like hell for leather, heading towards me. And I'm just clutching that meager possessions. Like, I just thought, he is going to stop. It is going to stop, isn't it? And it came to that kind of, you know, and then Charlie looks down, I look up, he puts his hand down, and he sweeps me over the back of the horse.
Wow.
Well, that didn't happen that way. I had to have about 3, you know, guys, the electricians, push me, give me a push. But with the magic of film, you know.
Well, speaking of the magic of film, but then flipping back to kind of the live space, I mean, obviously you worked a lot in theatre as well. What timing is that? I mean, like, you've done, The Planet Stars and obviously Playboy the Western World. Was that kind of around this? Was that coming out of the general? Was that kind of around that time, or what was it later?
No, I think, you know, I'd done kind of film, television up until then, and then Plough and the Stars. I hadn't worked with Stephen yet in Bloom. I love Sean O'Casey. I love his work. I think, you know, for me anyway, coming from the North Side, and my family you know, coming from the inner city originally. You know, there's a language, there's a sing-songy beauty to the language that is kind of dying. And, you know, there's a rhythm in that. And they might be telling you off, but there's a gorgeous kind of with it. And, you know, when I read O'Casey, it just gets it, you know, and it's beautiful. And, you know, I really wanted to do The Plough and the Stars. And what I liked about it as well was that, you know, Stephen Ray directed it, and he wanted to cast younger. So you didn't have to be an old lady playing Ginny Gogan, because she probably was young with no teeth, you know, in the tenements. So that was great. And it was, you know, again, I didn't want a glamorous role. I wanted something I could get my teeth into, and I could with that. And there's lovely little kind of semi-monologues in that. That's brilliant, that you can kind of capture the whole feeling. So that was I was just there. I wanted it so badly. I got to work with some lovely, lovely actors, you know, and we had a great time, like Rachel Pilkington. I don't want to name names in case I forget. Jason Barry, Marcella Plunkett, you know, and it's fun. Theatre is it's like you go on, you're running away with the circus for 8 weeks, you know. You're in this bubble, and I love it. And then I think very soon after I became pregnant with my daughter, Katie. So that put the stoppers on doing more theatre for a bit.
Yeah.
And then with the Playboy, I read it and I just thought, I cannot not do this. You know?
Yeah.
I loved it. I mean, what was great about it is I was given a chance to completely create a new Widow Quinn.
Yeah.
You know? And like, one thing about me is when I'm creating a character is I have to dress her, and I have to actually physically know what she looks like. So with that switch on the hair and the juicy couture tracksuit, you know, I had that, and I brought that, you know, I said, this is what I think, you know. And of course, you know, you bring it to wonderful kind of costume designers and stuff like that, you know, it's a work. It's not just going on stage and saying the lines. I think you've got to kind of mold it from the ground up, you know.
But also, you know, I mean, we go back to kind of, you know, talk about Bloom in a second with Stephen Ray, but also to be playing a character like that on the Abbey stage, I just say, having come, you know, from the area that you came from, your parents, from the, you know, there's a whole legacy there of
Oh my God, yeah. I think there's like a kind of saying or something like, you know, I think if somebody's acting up, or, you know, they go, yeah, you should be on the Abbey, you know. And I think my two cousins, who are intellectuals and professors and all this, who were from Cabra, may I add, kind of went to see me in it and said, Jesus, can't believe our cousin's on the Abbey, you know? I'm playing the Widow Quinn. Yeah. So, you know, I was super proud, you know, and again, very proud to represent like my people and where I'm from, you know?
And can we go back to, I mean, that production of the Stars was really, really, it was great. It was kind of because Stephen kind of tried to push a few things on and try, you know, but also you went on, you know, in not that much later to do Bloom, which again was a beautiful piece of work on film with him. And again, to play those, you're talking about, you know, Ginny Gogan, the Widow Quinn, and Molly Bloom. So it's kind of, doesn't get more kind of, you know, cultural phenomenon, you know, cultural markers than that.
No, isn't it crazy? And I probably didn't think about that each time that the role would come up. I didn't go, well, I did with Bloom, I have to say. But, you know, Stephen actually one night after The Plough and the Stars kind of brought me aside and said, we're thinking of doing this, and I think you'd make a great Molly. And that's where the seed was sown. And then obviously it wasn't just handed to me.
Yeah.
I don't like that either. I don't want people to presume. I'd like to audition for people because I don't want them in any way thinking, oh, we didn't audition her. So I did audition, and I backtracked. Then I thought, I don't want to do this, you know, because it's too much of an iconic role. It's, you know, from the book, there's all these, you know, Joyceans, there's all these Ulyssesians, you know, to actually try and play a character that's probably different in everybody's head, how they imagine them, is a big undertaking. And also, if I'm honest, the original script had a lot more raciness in it, you know. And I thought, I'm not sure whether I want to, you know, go there. But you know, when I'd read the script, and it sat with me for about 3 months. I was asking loads of friends their advice and everything. So it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm just going in to play this. It was really like, you know, it had to come from my gut. And my gut was telling me not to be afraid to do it. But then all the other stuff, you know. And then what I thought was, well, I'm going to do it. And I have to give it 150%. There's no 50 and like I'm slightly embarrassed doing it. It had to be 150 or 200. And I thought, well, if it destroys my career, or if it's, you know, if it's absolutely terrible, that will be my swan song, or that will be, you know. And so I just went for it. I jumped in with both feet. And I'm so glad I did, like, you know, I'm very proud of it. And it's the first time that I've ever done anything like that, because there had to be a lot of stillness. I'd done all the voiceover, and it's all of that. And ironically, not to blow my own trumpet, because this is just something that I think that actors and actresses can relate to, is that I did it just a kind of first take of the voiceover, thinking it was only a guide. And then I'd gone back after the film had been edited and all to do the voiceover again, and it just did not work.
Wow.
Yeah. So the first pass was the right one. Yeah. You know? And sometimes that's the magic, you know?
And was it a long shoot on that? Was it kind of...
No, it was about 5 weeks, that's all. And, you know, at the end of the film, you see me saying Destiny at the end of, like, in between the credits or whatever. And then you get this huge pullback, and you actually see what we worked in. And it was like a little triangle. Yeah. And how Sean Walsh made that look be like The Room. Yeah. Beautiful. And of course, Stephen. I mean, Stephen is an incredible actor, and he's funny, you know, and he's just lovely. And I think, you know, I think we have a kind of shorthand when we work together, which is lovely. And I think, you know, I played his kind of on-off life in Trojan Eddie with him.
That's right.
And you know, so yeah, definitely. And I would work with him again in a heartbeat. You know, I just saw him online in Cypress Avenue.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, he was spectacular, and to get out and do that every night. Yeah. You know, I was just blessed to catch it, you know, online.
It's extraordinary. He's an actor that makes it look nearly too easy for everyone else. You're kind of going, it's not that easy, you know. From someone looking at it who doesn't know the craft, kind of goes, well, he's just kind of talking, you know, that. But to get to there is just, yeah. And come back to me, then through that television, then, I mean, you've kind of done all those. I mean, we'll get to the singing in a minute, but you've done all the different contexts in different ways, you know, and also in seminal things. I mean, you've been in EastEnders and Red Water, you know, there was kind of things there that.
Yeah, and I did. What was it? Oh yeah, the big one as well was Shameless.
Yeah.
That was a big leap again. They said to me, well, do you want to be Irish in it? And I said, no, I want to be Mancunian, and I want to play like that, you know. And again, we made the character. And there were clothes that were slightly always too tight. The hair was, even though she was a hairdresser, the hair was quite not that right, not that good. You know, and I always lie, well, not lie, sorry, not lie. I say to people, that took an hour to look that bad every day. An hour of makeup and hair. And I used to love taking off the hair at the end of the day, because it was filmed in, it's almost like situ. You go in through these kind of gates of an old, unused estate that, you know, for where factories and all used to be.
Yeah.
And then the gates close, and you are in Shameless then. You know, you have all the kind of, you know, the houses and stuff, the sets.
Yeah.
But you are there, and you're there all day. I mean, you go in at like 7, and you finish at 8. It was like a clocking on 9 to 5 job. and
Okay.
you finish, and then they leave you back to the hotel, and that's when you can kind of de-stress or
What a
de-character.
But what a brilliant character. I mean, it's kind of, I mentioned it in the context as well of, you look through your television career and seminal series that have been in the last 20 years, you go, God, you were in that. And so like from,
You're lucky.
our friends in
I'm
the
really lucky. And I did get to play one posh totty, which was the kind of sweetener in the middle of when I was doing Shameless, because I couldn't, I was offered this episode in Mr. Selfridge, and I couldn't do it because they wouldn't release me from, it's all this whole content. So they said, well, we'd only use it for a day. So I played this kind of cougar in this, well-to-do outfit, and I got to talk like that finally. So it was wonderful, and then I was back into the kind of Shameless.
Also, like our friends in the north, and like Peak, like all those, like, I mean, we've all kind of grown up as, children and kind of adults in, being submerged in that kind of British TV culture of very high class, in highly, production value dramas. But I mean, to be part of those, and then to actually, to have characters that kind of grow with them as well, it must be an amazing thing to kind of, like, can you watch yourself? Can you kind of look back on those and kind of go?
I don't tend to. I think I watched the first bit, and then obviously I watch like as if we're watching a horror film. I hate it. I see all my flaws. I see, bad choices and blah de blah, and then I might watch it again, and the second time I'm a bit easier on myself, and then I might watch myself actually interacting with the other person and all that. Then I tend, to be honest with you, I watch a little bit and then I don't really kind of go back to it, I tend to go, and I do remember what I did on the day, and I think it's enough, it was good enough. Because if it wasn't good enough in my books, I wouldn't have carried on. I'd say, I want to do that again.
But also, I mean,
wise to watch yourself.
Well, I mean, you mentioned, like, back at the commitments, that kind of sense of being in the public eye. But I mean, an awful lot of your parts, as you say, like on TV and in film, but particularly on television, because it arrives in everyone's kind of front room. Like, they're in, like, EastEnders is watched by a lot of people, Red Water is watched by a lot of people, Shameless is watched by a lot of people, Peak Practice is watched, like, they're, and do you, and obviously as well, they're, predominantly in the UK. I mean, obviously they're kind of screened here as well. But like, I mean, for me, that grew up on EastEnders, I mean, it was an incredible moment to kind of walk onto Albert Square and kind of, did you have that?
Oh my God, it was. And you know what the thing is that it was to go into the Queen Vic and see that bust, of the Queen Vic at the end of the bar, and realize again, like everything in real life, it's not how you imagined. It's much smaller. And it's so fast paced. I mean, hats off to those actors that do that every day. There's no time, you don't have any discussions about my character or my notes with the director. You just go on, and there's about 4 cameras on you. I only did about 7 episodes, and I think I always say it's a blink and you miss me phase, but it was nice to do something at that level, but at that pace as well of recording, that you don't get the luxury of time, and also because you're not the lead, also because you're not a lead character, you don't get any of the kind of screen time that you would have liked, in the sense of you don't get time to explore your character.
I hear you.
That's it's, for me, it's all a kind of a progression of learning in this craft, and just trying to go, well, I did that, I don't really like that way, I like this way, I do this and I do that.
But I think that's, I mean, when you look through your career, because I mean, you mentioned something earlier on which is kind of interesting about that kind of fight, because it seems to be from chatting to you and from like looking at your career, I think one has to have that fight in oneself. And you mentioned kind of back in Variety and that teaching about brushing yourself down and that kind of rejection piece, but also having to fight against perceptions, and you mentioned particularly with the commitments, and particularly where that kind of you might have, is that something as well that kind of you felt as not a battle is too strong of a word, but something that you could carry with you through your career? It's kind of, it's a campaigning piece, like, it's kind of, I'm going to try that, or I want to try that.
I think for me, I just wasn't comfortable being portrayed like that all the time. And that's why I kind of went against it. But having said that now, in hindsight, because I was young and I guess I was scared of where it would lead to. And when, especially now when you see all that Me Too movement, I think I backed away from presenting myself to people in Hollywood or whatever as this kind of an actress because I didn't want it. I didn't want that unwelcomed attention, you know?
Yeah.
So, and some people are very happy to have that, you know? It just doesn't suit my personality, you know? And yeah, I think I kind of then backtracked and went around the other way to meet myself the other side. Yeah. So now, if I play somebody who's a little bit overtly, now having said that, I'm no spring chicken, but overtly sexy or whatever, it's more that I'm in control now. Yes. Because it's, you know, the years have I've gained from experience.
Yeah. Well, that's a big word there. You mentioned is control, and kind of it's hard. It can be hard fought at times in any career, particularly as an actor, to kind of to have an agency or to have control over what you do, because there's so much on it. They look and waiting.
Yeah, and I did. I mean, not to kind of, you know, I've been very blessed, and I'm really grateful for everything I've done. But there have been things that I've been looking back now and say, maybe I shouldn't have been so pious and saying I won't take my clothes off for that. Maybe I should have. Especially now when you see everybody nowadays, that everything is so, but I think, you know, I'm old fashioned and I come from, you know, I'm proud and I feel that my life, I guess there's part of me that I want to keep for myself.
Yeah. And also they're very different times as well. Do you know what I mean? I think it was
exactly
different years ago than there are now. And music then, through all that, like, how are you finding time for that piece of you?
Well, I didn't for a while, or it's always been there. I've always been writing. Yeah. And funnily enough, when I did Over the Rainbow with Brona Gallagher, that kind of came out of necessity. It was with Declan Lowney, who was a great director, who went on to direct a lot of Father Ted, and he's brilliant. And he's also slightly got a foot in music as well, because I think he did documentaries on the Velvet Underground and all that. I think because we were a band, and I think after and Ian Lefrene and Dick Clement actually wrote the series for Brona and myself, who they adapted the screenplay for the Commitments. So here's where the link is. But they, I think we used Route 66 and the tiniest bit of it, like 20 seconds, and it nearly cost the whole, what the series cost. So they, and Declan said, I mean, do you have any songs, or do you know? And I said, well, I have one I wrote, or two, and then I played them. They said, grand, we'll use that. And then the funny thing was, they used to say, like, well, can you come up with 3 by Monday? So I'd be like, all weekend going, okay, and we did it. And then, like, Brona and I then wrote the theme song, and then during the show, there was at least one number every week, and I'd be writing that at the weekend. And again, that was a live, see, there's different kind of mediums again. That was live, a comedy in front of a live audience.
Yes.
And that was another, you know, thing to get used to doing that.
Yeah.
You know?
And is that kind of then, did that click something again for you, or that when you started writing?
No, I mean, again, the music was always there, but I always was afraid to take my eye off the acting in case, you know. So the music kind of took a back seat for a while. And then it was only when we were doing our reunion gig for the O2 there back about, was it 9 years, 8 years ago?
Is it really? God, oh God, yeah, okay.
I can't believe it, like time just goes like that. And it was only doing that we were in for a month talking about lovely Liberty Hall again. We were in the theatre there. And, you know, just coming in the mornings, and there was all these lovely little cool lamps lighting. Somebody lit some incense. The musicians were on stage with their electric guitars, and, you know, everybody that was in the film, because they actually played. And, you know, we had a month of rehearsals, and it was just bliss going in to be with the band, you know. And do the numbers, and just very, very cool. And see again that kind of growth of just getting back together after 20 something years, and taking it from there to actually doing a live performance at the O2. You know, no pressure. We were never really a band, but you know. So yeah, that kind of awakened, you know, the music.
And be standing, as I said, to not really being a band, to, you know, performing live obviously at premieres and at, you know, in the film, but then to be standing on stage in the O2 and going, oh, okay.
Yeah, and you know, it's Irish people as well, because we were even during the film, you know, we all know now, don't we? But I think, you know, during the film, you know, somebody said, we've done the American ones first. We're all terrified about the Irish one. It's like, what's so-and-so down the road going to think about it, you know? And that's all you're worried about. They could be all clapping, but it's the one woman who lives down the road, whether she liked it or not.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and like, I don't know, it was something like 15, 16,000 people. And I find that incredible. To buy tickets to go and see a band that doesn't really exist. That's great, you know?
Yeah.
And we had a beautiful, lovely time. And it was lovely. It was a nice, cathartic kind of ending to when we started. Because so many people have said, is there a number 2? Or are you going to make it? And I'm so glad it was left in that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I, you know, and I think I have nightmares. I think they're actually nightmares that we've done a number 2, you know, because, sorry, that came out all wrong. But, you know, that we've done a second film, because I just think it's lovely. And I don't watch it, but I will one day, because it makes me sad. I have melancholy. I have all of those emotions, you know.
Of course. And come here, and then so the music then. So you kind of went, okay, I tipping away, and then I mean, obviously in between, you know, small things like being in Albert Nobbs and, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
How did that kind of happen actually? Before we go into the music, how did that kind of, like, how did that come about for you?
Well, I think it was the Hubbards who cast it, and I think it was generally mostly all cast. And then Roz had said, "There's this little part," and I went, "Well, I want that one," and you know, that one was gone. So she said, "Would you do it?" And I went, "Well," and then Glenn Close had said, "Would you?" And I said, "Okay." Well, you don't say no to Glenn Close, do you?
No, you don't.
Bunny rabbit in him, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's how that happened. And believe it or not, I know this is really bad. You asked me, do I see myself? I haven't seen the film.
Wow, it's very good.
I literally have a list of films that I need to sit down and watch, you know. Wow. So,
and come here, so then recently, you know, in the last number of years, your music and your songwriting and your performing, like, as that became, you know, not more important to you, but like obviously there was a calling there was stuff you wanted to kind of write about, there was things you wanted, did that, like, what did that feel like suddenly to kind of go, oh God, this is, you know, it's always been there, now it's taken front and center.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost lighting that little gas lamp again, and then trying to bring the flame up higher and higher so that you get some light, you know. They were always there, and there was some songs that like were from like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Not very many, because I find that I work better when I'm in a room with musicians. I'm not great on my own. I have written, you know, off the top of my head. And funnily enough, I write best when I'm cooking. So if I'm cooking for kids or whatever, and then I'll quickly have to go and grab my iPhone and do the melody, you know, or when I wake up straight away, if I'm dreaming of a song, which I sometimes do, I wake up straight away and I've got to put it in the dictaphone thing, because otherwise it's gone. The day commences and it's gone out of my head. But, you know, I find just if somebody gives me a C or a B, or if I said, you know, that lovely slide guitar, or, you know, can you play a bit of, you know, this kind of beat?
Yeah.
And I have a book of lyrics, you know, which are almost like poems in a way, I'd say. It's ideas. And then I just kind of, you know, take a bit of that, mix a bit of that, do a bit of that. You know, it's unfortunate that, you know, my album is supposed to come out this year, But with timing, I think it's probably best to leave it till next year, when we know where everything is. And I can't wait to gig. I really can't wait again. And my own critic inside me would say, "Oh, for God's sake, you're too old, or you do this or that." But you know what? I really don't care. And the reason why I'm doing this album, of course, I care if people buy it and like it. But it's to satisfy something in me, and it's to give one each to my kids and say, there you go, that's what your mom did,
Wow.
And that's it. Just kind of, I've reached the summit,
No.
And that's what I want to do. But I do find that, like, in being in the studio, and I just love it. I love hearing the guitars, or I love what somebody can come up with, or say, why don't we put a bit of harmonica? Why don't we put glockenspiel? Why don't we put a bit of sitar? It's just a whole new kind of painting. Okay, you're doing something with acting, but and it's not that far removed in my brain, in my head. But it's satisfying. I did say once that it is like having a kind of cerebral and vocal gin and tonic, and that's the way I look at it.
That's a great phrase.
Yeah, but it is. It's like having a gin and tonic. When I take my guitar out, I'm like,
Yeah, no, it's great. And it's also kind of a place where you can lose yourself for a while. I think it's just fantastic. Even no matter what level of musician you're at, to be able to just kind of sit down and just lose yourself in something, it's incredible.
Yeah, and I'm still working on getting the riff at like breakneck speed for A Whole Lot of Love. And that would be my, that's more than winning the lottery to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm putting it up on Instagram.
Oh, exactly what you mean, actually. I won't keep you for much longer. I'm just interested in, that sense of authenticity that, and every actor tries to bring to the role. But as a person, it seems to be very important to you, those kind of grounding things like family, like, where you're originally from, like the kind of grounding you got as an early age through, dancing and I suppose discipline of, so as you mentioned yourself, kind of having that kind of huge abundance of energy when you're young, but finding a discipline to kind of galvanize that into something for you. Is that feeling still there, as you are, developing an amazing career over the year of being live in the moment, whether it be on a film set or whether it be on a stage, or is that still something that you drive after?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what I have other things in my life, and thankfully, in a way, I do have music and I have acting, and I can separate them in a way. I mean, yeah, they are part of me. But, what's great for me is that I have a little bit of a safety net, that if things aren't really going, and, like actors, I'm not one of those, I'm not lucky enough to be one of those actors that get scripts every day of the week. Sometimes I have to work very hard for scripts and get the role. Sometimes I don't have to work. So, it's very up and down. It's a roller coaster. And, when things are not happening, what I love to do is just concentrate on my music and write a few songs. And thank God I have that. You know what I mean? It's my saving grace, or vice versa. I mean, I've only been writing something for a one-woman show for the last 5 years. Actually, no, it's since I did the Playboy, so it's a lot longer. But I will get back to it. And like, I always let my sister read it. I mean, it needs editing, but she said it's great. And when she said it's great, again, it's like the woman down the road. If she likes it, then it's all right. But, I try, and I have to be disciplined with myself about that, if I'm honest, because as actors, it can be very, very hard on us if you're going for something. And you almost, well, I do anyway, and I'm sure some people do, is if you're going for a role, what you have to do is you have to imagine yourself in it. Yes. You have to imagine the time. Have I got that time? Who's going to mind my kids? How much is it? Oh, that would be great to get the new extension. So you're going in with all these preconceptions that you've already got it. And it's bloody devastating if you don't.
Yeah.
And you do have to kind of regroup yourself. You take a day to be sad, or, not cry, but, you're angry, or you're pissed off, and then you kind of have to just dust yourself down and get back on the horse again of life. You can't let these things demolish you. You can't let these things be you. You know, you've got to fill your life with other things that are more than just that. You can't define yourself by roles or by jobs, because in our industry, it can be so fickle. And because we only have a certain lifespan, or at only certain times of ages that we are, will we work more than others. There's always these in-between times for actors of ages or whatever. That you do have to kind of occupy yourself and keep yourself buoyant and keep yourself up, you know. And what I do is I was due to go back to do Keeping Faith, and because of contractual things, I didn't go back to doing the second series. And I looked at that as an opportunity. I could have looked at it as, oh God, I'm not doing it, you know. But I actually went and trained to be a teacher in yoga with those months.
Wow.
And I previously trained to do Pilates. So, and I had to do, what was wonderful is, you asked me, was I academic? I bloody well had to be. I had to do anatomy and physiology and all these. I had thought it was a bit like that Specsavers ad, that you go in and you just do this and notice that you don't really know how to do it. So I got a very, very kind of slap in the face of, I had to do a lot of exams. But that was great for me, because that just took me away from sometimes the disappointment of what our careers can be, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think, you know, what's amazing chatting to you is, for someone with that amount of talent, but also that achieved, like, say, stardom so quickly, you know, in relation to film, that you've managed really as a person, like, forget your career, but as a person, to kind of ground yourself in the reality of a long career or a long life. Do you know what I mean? That it's not.
Well, this is it. And I mean, there's nothing like this COVID and this pandemic at the moment to really put us all on a kind of a, you know, a leveler, to say, it makes you think about what's really important. And, you know, and again, like you were saying about where I grew up, is I grew up in a very rich place. It might not have been rich, you know, money-wise, but very rich culturally, very rich. There was always, like, if you go to your nana's at Christmas, everybody had to sing. You know, there was no way you're getting out the door without it. And you know, you make do. You kind of hone your talents. You know, we didn't have laptops. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have major access to music. You know, I used to record songs off the radio on a cassette, you know that? Or somebody would give you a lend of a cassette of stuff they recorded off the radio. And, you know, there's all that kind of bartering, or, oh, she makes dresses and she'll do the dress if you give her, you know, and there was so many talented people, you know, when I grew up. And it's also about getting along with people and being, you know, and God forbid if anybody got uppity, you know. And I mean, before me, I come from a long line of famous people from Cabra. I mean, Dickie Rock was from Cabra. So, you know, I was always reminded about that. So don't, like, start thinking you were anybody, you know. So, yeah. And I still, you know, I just did a film before Christmas there, and it's coming out, hopefully. We don't know. It's a wonderful film, and I really, really loved doing it. And I got to work with all these newbies, as I call them, people like Thomas Kane Byrne, you know, Erica Rowe, Shauna Higgins, Lauren Larkin, and all these kids. I'm sorry that I call them kids, but to me, they're kids who just have this wonderful belief in themselves and confidence, and are writing their own stuff. Which is brilliant. And it just made me, you know, really proud and kind of going, fair play to you. You know, they're not depending on somebody to give them a job. They're creating their own work. And that is phenomenal, you know, and I really was impressed by all these, you know, and we had such a great time on the job with them. You know, it was, you can imagine. But what I did was I was given the option of maybe going to stay in an Airbnb over in Wicklow or wherever I wanted it, really. You know, I was, you know, because I live in London, I'd had to go and stay somewhere for 6 weeks. And my aunt's house in Cabra was available, so I stayed there. But, you know, not only was it free, but, you know, it just brings you back. I mean, I thought briefly whether I wanted to go and stay by some lake in Wicklow, but what would I do? who would I see? You know? So there's that. So, I mean, and also I was playing, I was playing a great role for, and funnily enough, it was kind of centered or written around the idea of Ballymun.
Okay.
There you go. And, I don't want to be too far. I don't want to ever stray too far from that. You can't. I think somehow there's a malady in you then if you do. There's something that you lose. I don't want to lose that. And I do even see it being lost in generations now where they have so much. And I even, like, my kids know Molly Malone. They know all the expressions because I don't want it to go,
Oh, absolutely. Come here, listen, thanks so much for taking part in this. It's been an absolute
You're welcome.
joy chatting to you. And I can't wait to see
Thank
you.
you.
And I can't wait to hear the album. That,
And listen, I can't wait to come and do something there at the Axis because I think it's a beautiful theatre.
yes.
And I really think what you're doing is so important. And it's vital, to keep it going. And and eventually when I do write my one-woman show, I'll come.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thanks a million. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.